So this week we've been talking about 3 tech tools that I used in my recent challenge to boost my rate of opt-ins into that free challenge by a factor of 5. I was gobsmacked, honestly, when I started running the numbers, and I attribute much of that success for this free challenge to these tools. And what was really cool is they were so simple to set up. 2 of them have completely free options and one has a free trial. And so if you'd like to learn about those, I've linked the blog post below. But the 3 tools were Proof, Loom, and Video Ask. So Loom, I love, I use lots of different ways in my business, but the other 2 I'd not used before. And normally when I'd be starting something new, promoting a new offer, that wouldn't necessarily be the time that I'd start getting in there and like experimenting with totally new tools. But each one proved to be a really unique asset. And so I incorporated them before, during, and after hosting this live challenge. So if you have any questions about that, if you've checked out the blog post and you have questions about any of those tools specifically, or anything else related to boosting your rate of opt-ins, especially to a free resource, that's what we're talking about today. So if you're watching live, welcome. Please pop your question into the chat and I can address it live on the call. If you're catching the replay, still go ahead and share your question below and I'll respond to it as I can. If you're totally new here, if we've not met before, hi, I'm Michaela Bucchianeri. I'm a psychologist turned copy coach, and I help you bring more of your in-person magic to your online presence, attracting more of your dream clients, the people you most want to reach, with words that connect. So if that sounds good to you, welcome. I hope you'll hit subscribe. I post new videos each week. They go up every Tuesday. And beginning today, I will be going live, hosting a live Q&A every Thursday. So twice a week, I'll be here on YouTube, and I'd love to have you join. And so I put up a call for questions just to get things rolling for our first live Q&A here. I put them up to my community over on Instagram. I've dropped my handle right here. I'd love to connect with you there. And I asked for your questions on this topic, and I got some excellent ones. I always do. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through those. I'm going to share my answers to those questions here. But again, if you have any questions that come up while we're here live, please drop them below and I'll be happy to take a crack at answering them. So the first question that I thought was really great was, any tips for social proof when it's a brand new resource you're promoting? And I love this question because that's the exact situation I was in. This was a totally new challenge that I'd never hosted before. And so it really got me thinking about what constitutes social proof. And just as a little heads up, I'm going to have a video coming very soon talking about different types of social proof and how you can use it to hit these different sweet spots in your audience when you're promoting something new or something again. But we can think about it a number of different ways. Now, of course, I went into detail in this week's video and blog post about how I used the Proof app to display real-time social proof. So the quick version, if you're not already familiar with this tool, is that when someone opts in, you provide the URL, source code, all of that ahead of time. But when someone opts into the free resource, the challenge that you're hosting on your website, that information is displayed to other visitors on the site. So you can configure the settings however you like. I just had it pull the first name and general location from the IP address. Proof will do all of that for you. And it pops up as a little window in the corner like, hey, so-and-so from so-and-so just joined the challenge. And it really made a difference in the rate of opt-ins. I think it's that real-time proof. It's an aptly named app, real-time proof that just conveys, hey, other human beings like yourself are opting into this right now. And the point I made in my video this week was that I think this is particularly useful when it's a brand new resource, when it's something that folks might not be fully educated on yet, or there might still be some lingering questions. Anything you can do to kind of nudge them in that direction of this is a valuable resource that other people are saying yes to as we speak. It's just going to help you out that much more. But I found that to be very helpful. And something else that was cool about the Proof app specifically is that they do their own built-in split testing. And so they can show you in some iterations where they actually hold back the social proof windows that they populate so that they can compare your rate of opt-ins in these different snapshots in time. It's really, really cool. It's a robust set of analytics they'll show you without being overwhelming. So I really appreciated that as I was running this challenge. But back to your question, there are a number of different things you can do. So we can think about the same sort of approach you'd take to social proof on any other part of your website. And so picture the homepage. This is a place where folks will often display logos or names of places they've been featured, platforms, businesses they've worked with, events that they've spoken at or taken part in. Anything that can kind of signal authority and credibility is going to help demonstrate social proof. We also often tend to think about testimonials. And I think probably what's driving your question is, if I've never hosted this before, I don't obviously have any testimonials yet from participants in this specific resource. And that was the situation I was in. So what I did instead was pull screenshots and excerpts from testimonials I'd gotten from participants of past free events and challenges and resources that I'd hosted. And I tried as clearly as I could to identify them as such. Like, this is feedback I've gotten from challenges I've hosted in the past. And my aim in doing that was to say, right, this is a brand new challenge. I'm not trying to pretend that it's not, but I host a really good challenge. Look at what people have had to say in the past. And I tried to choose enthusiastic, positive, of course, testimonials from folks who could point to a specific outcome, like a specific tangible result that they got by virtue of taking part in the challenge that I'd hosted. And you don't have to be too elaborate with that. So I ended up just creating a simple graphic of those screenshots in Canva that then I included on my actual opt-in page for the challenge. So that's what I'd recommend to you, is go back and think more broadly about, okay, if I don't have any testimonials yet from this brand new thing I'm offering, what else can I pull from to convey to people that I'm a good host, that I put on a good event? I hope that's helpful. The next question that I got, which I thought was another great question, is what's a good conversion rate for a freebie or lead magnet? Now, if you're totally new to the idea of opt-in rates or conversion rates, you're thinking, what the heck? The way that you calculate this is to take the number of actual opt-ins that you get. So let's just, for ease here, let's call it a free training, right? So for your free training that you're hosting, you would take the number of total opt-ins that you got. So let's go with something really easy. Let's say you got 5. And then you would divide that number by the number of unique visitors that you had to your opt-in page. And so you, depending on what platform you're on, would access that information on the back end. So you divide your eventual number of opt-ins, 5, by the number of unique visits to that page. So let's say it was 100, just for ease of math here. That would give you a 5% conversion rate. It would be said that that free training is converting at 5%. 5% of the people who landed on that page and had the option, conceivably, to opt in, chose to opt in. So the question is, what's a good conversion rate? Now, the short answer and the frustrating answer is it depends, but I did do a little digging, and I'm pulling these numbers from wordstream.com. They published a blog post last year sharing some aggregate data across a number of different industries. And they reported that the average landing page conversion rate for a freebie was 2.35%. So lower than the example I just gave, right? In that case, it would be just above 2 people out of the 100 that are opting in. Yet the top 25% of pages are converting at 5.31% or higher. They go on to say, ideally, you want to break into the top 10%. These are the landing pages with conversion rates of 11.45% or higher. So, kind of the additional question that you didn't ask, but it would make a lot of sense if that was like the next question that comes to mind is, what does this look like practically? So you put up your page, you're starting to drive traffic to it, you're monitoring your opt-in rate. Behind the scenes, what do you do if it's lower than that? If it's certainly lower than that 11%, let's say, what do you do? I think one encouragement I would give to you is, usually we're not hosting these things just one off and then we never revisit it again. So as best you can, I'd encourage you to view every free training, every free resource, anything that you're giving people the option to opt into, viewing it as one iteration. It's a round, and you're going to have, subsequent rounds in the future, hopefully. Hopefully that takes some of the heat off of that one go round to actually like hit that conversion rate, because from there are so many different pieces that you can tweak and adjust that you could easily burn yourself out. Not to mention, like, if we're taking a scientific approach to this, it's really hard to pinpoint definitively which of those tweaks made the difference if we're messing with a whole bunch of different things at once. So I would urge you to do your best, of course, to put together a really viable opt-in page. And we'll talk about that in a minute with another of these questions. And give yourself an adequate amount of time if you're hosting this live for people to have the option to visit it, right? Because these numbers are going to be more trustworthy the larger they get, the more people whose eyeballs have seen your opt-in opportunity will be able to trust that percentage, that rate, that much more. But oftentimes people will, so let's say you've started hosting this and you're watching it on the back end and you're thinking, people aren't opting in. Maybe I'll just mess with this. Maybe I'll just mess with that. What I would encourage you to do, assuming you have all the essential pieces that you need there, is to focus on one thing. Okay, so what's one thing that I want to change? Could I have a punchier headline? Could I have something that gets people's attention more at the very top? Or could I have a more clear promise of what they will actually gain by taking part in this training? From there, I think your efforts would be better concentrated on getting more people onto your page. So really just driving more traffic to that page and then seeing how it goes. So good luck. I mean, it's always a little nerve-wracking, but I think those benchmarks for conversion rate can be helpful. It gives us some kind of a ballpark. But again, that was aggregated across many different industries, and not included in those totals were really essential pieces of information like what was being offered, how warm was the audience, how long a span of time were these opt-ins being recorded. All of this will come into play. So be gentle with yourself and just treat it like a true experiment, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Okay, next question. For a free offer, is it better to have a super brief landing page, no scrolling required, or a longer form page with lots of info? This is an excellent question, and I don't think that there is a definitive answer. What I'm going to do instead is kind of offer you a pro and con of each of those two options, and then give you a third option to consider. So just to be clear on what we're picturing here, the super brief landing page would be like, you go to the page and it's got maybe like a heading and a little subheading and maybe an image, maybe not, and then some kind of a form where you input your name and your email address, or just your email address, or whatever info is being collected there. That would be super brief. And like this person says, no scrolling required. It's like all hero image on the page. That would be option one. Option two would be a longer form page, almost like a mini sales page. And I'm sure you've visited pages like this, where whether it's for a free course or a workshop or some other kind of free thing, but you're scrolling and scrolling, and sometimes they're built out beautifully, and the design elements and the copy it feels like it's for a full course or a coaching program or something. It's so juicy. These would be kind of like your two extreme options. Now, let's take the second one first. The pros of a longer form version is that as long as you're giving folks the opportunity to opt in throughout the page, in other words, you never want to bury the actual form or the button, however they're going to say yes to what you're offering. You never want that to be buried under piles of other stuff. But as long as you're giving them ample opportunity to opt in, the longer it is, in theory, the more essential pieces of information you can convey. And we'll come back to this in a moment. So I think if it's something completely new, it might be worth considering leaning in that direction. So for my free challenge that I wrote this blog post about, I did kind of a hybrid. Mine wasn't the length of a full sales page, for example, like for a free offer that I'd be promoting, but it did have different sections. I had a section introducing myself. There were some key kind of pain points. I gave information about what the actual challenge involved, the length of time, all of that. And I think that was helpful, again, because this was totally new. This is not something that many people would have heard of, even from me yet. And also, I knew that I was deliberately inviting people who had opted in. I was inviting them to invite a friend. I was kind of saying, help spread the word, just because I wasn't sure how wide a reach I would get this first go round. So for that reason, it made sense to me to err on the side of a little more information on the opt-in page. Now, that might not be necessary if you are driving a very warm, very educated audience of traffic to that page. What I mean by educated is people who are already in your ecosystem. They're already familiar with what you have to share. Maybe they've heard you kind of warming them up to the idea of whatever you're offering, either in blog posts or emails or videos or live events where they've heard you speak. There are lots of opportunities we have to help bring people down this path of getting educated about what we have to share. At that point, if you've already done a lot of that work, if you've front-loaded that relationship building, it's not necessary to then double down on even more information when they get to the page. At that point, it might make sense and be advantageous to have them just land somewhere, right quick, there's the form, here's my name, I'm in. The third option I would invite you to consider is to make two different versions that you could do a couple of different things with that. So I'd build out the first one, the longer form first, and then create just a really pared down, no scrolling, simple version. So those are your two versions, A and B, and you can do a couple things with them. You can treat them just like in the example I just gave. You can actually send they can live at different places on your website, and you can send traffic deliberately to one or the other, depending on who you're sending there. You could also treat it like a true split test, where maybe for 1 week that you're promoting this, you send traffic to one page, and then the next week you switch out the page that's shown when they go to that URL, and it's the other version, and then you compare the data. There's lots of ways you can approach this. I know some people who will alternate, they'll have one version. Say they start with a simple version the first time they're offering something, and then the next time they promote it, maybe later that year, they use a totally different version, like they've built it out more, or they've included new pieces, new testimonials, and then they compare that. The only thing to keep in mind with that is that it's going to be additional time that you're putting into this, and so it might not be necessary. And if it's not necessary, you might consider just not doing it. um, and second, it's it's going to be influenced by lots of other factors. And so let's say, for example, you do the last instance I gave of waiting until a later period of time. So, okay, I hosted it once. Now I'm hosting it again. I'm going to experiment with a different format of page. We have to take into account things like your audience size. It's probably grown. You've probably honed your skill in talking about this without even realizing it in all of your other communications. All of this is going to affect the experience that people have when they actually get to your page, above and beyond what actually is there displayed on the page. I hope this is making sense. I think you're free to experiment however you like. Just keep in mind there are a lot of different moving parts and pieces. And so if you're more drawn to super brief, try out super brief. If you have a lot of information, you know, in theory, it shouldn't be too hard to populate a longer form page because these are already pieces of information you've already collected, like in your copy vault. And if you don't have one yet, you are more than welcome to join my free challenge. That's the challenge that I've been talking about all along. I've linked that for you down below. But hopefully you've been kind of squirreling away all of those pieces of info so that you're not sitting down to write your opt-in page from scratch. You're just pulling information from your copy vault and plugging it in. But yeah, have fun with it, experiment with it, and I'd love to know what you find, what you learn. Okay, the final question that I chose here is asking about key pieces of info to include on an opt-in page. And I love this question because we've kind of been talking around it this whole time, but there there are no absolute must-dos. It really depends on you, your business, and your audience. But generally speaking, there are some kind of universal components that are just helpful. They're helpful to have there. So I'm going to, in answering this, imagine either like a medium length opt-in page like I used for my challenge, or a longer form. I'm not really imagining just the brief opt-in, because for that, really there's only enough space to have kind of the name of whatever it is you're offering, the promise of what it's all about, and then a place to input their information. So those for sure would be essential. Beyond that, I think it is helpful to think about creating a little bridge. And we're often trying to do this with our communications and our copy, right? Creating a bridge between where the person you're trying to attract into your free thing is currently, what they're struggling with, what they're frustrated by, maybe what they've tried, and bridging the divide between that and where they want to be as it relates to what you have to offer. And there's a temptation sometimes, right, to promise them the moon. And that's how we get these really grandiose and also quite vague promises like total transformation, like level up. So the finer point you can put on that end point you're helping them get to, the better. So are you preparing them to develop one specific skill? Will they have one tangible outcome afterwards? Will they experience some kind of a noticeable shift in one area of their life? And what will that look like? Will it be additional knowledge they'll have, like essential key information that they're currently lacking? Will it be something that they will then have practice in? Will they have practiced an actual skill or overcome a challenge by virtue of taking part in your free resource? So drilling down to really what the specific promise is, and then helping them visualize, okay, by taking part in this, I'm going to get from here to here. And that's a really simple idea, this bridge, but look at how much it involves. It first requires you to back up and get clear on, who am I even talking to? Like, who did I even create this resource for? Do I just want everyone in it? Probably not. I probably want a very specific segment of the population out there to take part in this. So how can I signal to them, hey, I made this for you, I'm talking to you? It also requires you to have some working knowledge of what they're dealing with right now. So that first part, this is, the pain points that we're always hearing about in marketing. what are their frustrations? What are they actually struggling with? And again, kind of a more advanced level of that is, what have they tried already? You can speak to that in a really pithy way, even on a medium length opt-in page, and it can be really powerful because it communicates to people, I care, I have basic empathy, I could put myself in your shoes, and I've done my homework. I'm aware of what you likely have already tried, and this is going to be different. That's the key part. It's like, this is an alternative and it's a good one. Join me. And then being able to talk them through the actual bridge. Like, what am I saying yes to right now? And this is especially true for free resources that go beyond your checklist or your one-page PDF. I'm thinking more like um, video trainings or workshops, challenges like mine that have kind of action steps they're taking every day. There are so many different ways that we can be of service, that we can really support and serve people well through our free resources, but being as specific as we can. There's a real theme here, right? With specificity. If we can be very specific about what they're saying yes to, that is going to help them make a good decision. Another kind of rookie mistake that all of us have been susceptible to at one time or another is to falsely believe that more is better, that it's about quantity. Like, oh, if a 3-day challenge is good, then 5 days must be great. If 5 days is great, why not a week? And overwhelm is a very real barrier to people not just getting the result that they're looking for in these free challenges and other resources, but also it's a barrier to them even saying yes in the first place, because their alarm bells go up like, I'm never going to be able to succeed at this. And we only want to say yes to things that we're pretty confident we can succeed at. That's human nature. And so we want to make it feel very accessible to them. I also think it's helpful to provide some kind of a peek behind the curtain. So that could be as simple as one of those little mock-up images that you can make on Canva pretty easily, that shows just like, a screenshot of, if there's like a course platform or if there's a video training, it would be just kind of a screenshot like of this video right here. Something to help people visualize what the actual environment is going to be. Will they get, if it is simply a download, like show them a little screenshot of what that will look like. If there's any kind of a time investment on their part, of course there will be. That could be time spent watching videos, that could be time preparing or responding or taking action on something they've learned. If you can kind of estimate that for people, that's helpful. Again, with an eye toward keeping it very simple. What else? What else? We can use some of that aggregate testimonial data that we talked about earlier. And again, keep an eye out for an upcoming video on social proof, because I'll be sharing some more specific examples of how you can do this. But it could even just be summarized feedback you've gotten on similar challenges you've hosted in the past. Some kind of a brief introduction to who you are, because we can't know for sure who all is landing on our page, especially if you're going to be promoting it on social media, or you will, like I did, invite your participants to invite members of their own communities. Not everyone who lands there will know exactly who you are. Now, this doesn't have to be an in-depth, your life story, but I think a photo, your name, and a really kind of pared down brief version of a conversational version of your bio to orient them to who you are and why you are a credible, trustworthy guide on whatever journey you're about to take them on with your free thing. I think that's useful. And then a very clear, enticing call to action. That's another video that's in the pipeline that'll be coming to you soon, is something that makes them actually want to say yes to it. So you can think about whatever the end result they're going to get. Oftentimes, emotion words will elicit excitement or engagement. If there's a really enticing end result, you can fold that into the call to action, just something that's going to say, okay, yes, let's do this. The more you can tee it up for them and make it as appealing as possible, the more successful you're going to be. But I hope this is helpful. Again, if you're watching the replay, welcome. Please pop your questions below and I'll be happy to address them as I can. But thanks again for being here. I'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday for our next live Q&A. Take care, everyone. Bye.